Nigeria is that public policy is politicized. It shouldn't be so. There's too much of politics in what we do. And until we reduce politicization, we can't make much progress.
Give us an instance of what you're talking about.
Oh, okay. There are so many things that the politicians have taken control over. They are not allowing technocrats, experts to operate. There's so much that is political. I give you what I'll call a simple example of, say, recruitment of staff into government agencies. Those of us who were in charge of those agencies many years ago, we were shocked to see what happens these days, that the agencies don't recruit staff by themselves. They are imposed on them. They are sent to them. There's nothing to prove that person is suitable. But you just take him because he has been brought by the powers that be. Basic things. It's not just today. If you remember the case of immigration, where people had to die, where immigration exercise was done in the stadium. We forgot that we have always had an immigration service that has always done its job diligently. But because the ministers and political appointees wanted to take control of recruitment, it ended in a fiasco. That's part of that is politicization. There are methods of recruitment that agencies, parastatals have known over the years as part of their work ethics. All of a sudden, it's only the politician who has a point, who has his way, who says what will happen, irrespective of what people are doing. Some time ago, I was compelled to write an article on a motion in Parliament, where our National Assembly people were trying to set up law schools. I just can't understand. They were citing them in their villages. No light there, no road to the place. The law schools we have on ground are not equipped. How did you arrive? There is a legal education council. What does it do if a legislator is the one determining where a law school should be established and set? So there's something about policy and wanting to execute it. These days, there's no difference between policy and management. In our days, the ministerial group was in charge of policy. The day-to-day running of NTA was in my hands. Today, I don't think that's what's happening. I don't even think that a friend told me that since 2015, Radio Nigeria has not recruited one staff. I mean, you can't continue like that. You need this staff to operate. Some people are resigning. A few people have died. You need to replace them, but they must be properly replaced, right? The federal character principle is not wrong. It should be applied, but it should be only those who are qualified. Take the best from everywhere, and you have a better system. But this one, it is take the relation of this man. Take the person, this one, they've sent this from so place. And many of these things are actually people in the corridors of power, and not necessarily those in charge. It was starting in our time, and I was lucky, I had access to the president. So if you told me president said so and so, I will ask him. The man said, no, I don't know about it. Right? So, and that it was just starting then. Now it's permanent. You don't, if you see anybody who's in charge of a public institution, not like yours that is private, they don't know what's happening there. They are just told. If anybody has been recruited in the last 5 years, he was sent. Right? There's nothing like audition. There's nothing like, you understand what I mean? So those things we cannot operate like that. You cannot have a ministry made up of administrators supervising a technical team. It means you are bureaucratizing project implementation. And bureaucracy is not something for projects. It's for administration.
Well, I say the line in which our conversation is going towards now, I mean, is almost bringing forward the Oransanye report, which the president now says he wants to implement. They've set up a committee and they've given them 3 months, it's 12 weeks, thereabout, to see how it is that they can implement the Oransanye report. Well, I'd like your feedback on that. I would want to go back a bit because, part of what is big on the land right now is the issue of hunger. We've seen the NLC protest. You have said it is welcome. It is what should happen in a democracy, and it should happen in a manner that is peaceful and people can get their voices heard. I'm just wondering, when you look at, because you've also spoken about communication and how government is communicating, you've said it's not just by words, it's also what it is that they have, or what they've done, their body language. So far, so good. From your own assessment, what would you say that what government has said that it is trying to do with regards to restructuring the economy and putting it back on track, does its body language correspond with what it is saying?
Of course it doesn't. We can only pray that some persons will learn and alter the pattern that we used to see. You see, if the Oronsaye panel was set up to streamline, to reduce the size of government, to stop this bloated service, then we must start from the starting point. I don't think the president knew that he would do this when he came into office. And I won't blame him because developments are coming. It's probably the development that has made him to do this. Now that development has made him to do this, he will need to reduce the number of ministers. That is when you say examples are better than precepts, right? He will need to ensure that government is not bogus. It's not about the ministries and agencies that you merge. Those are not where the resources are coming from. At a point in time when there was already hunger and everybody was angry, we were buying 160 million naira vehicles for legislators. It doesn't just work. Even if you change today, I don't think that is something that we can forget in the next 2 decades. That somebody was buying a vehicle for 160 million to do a job in this country, and as usual, we talk about it for 2 weeks, it ends and it goes. So that thing has ended, and those cars are there, or they are supposed to be there. How can that happen? So if we are reducing government, we must reduce it properly. During the Murtala Mohammed regime, during the military era, there was this same problem we had, and there was a need for government to come down. It was the Murtala Mohammed Obasanjo regime. The first thing they did was to insist that the highest vehicle in the country is a 504. The president or head of state was driving a 504. So when you start from that way, the people below will know that you mean business. We'll all be on the same page. You can't sit down in the latest Jeep and be telling the rest of us to tie belt. Right? That is the difference between what you are saying and what we are watching, which is the question you are asking. So we must try as much as possible to let whatever we are doing simmer through the process. Let everybody know that this is what is happening. We cannot continue to have a system where pensioners don't get gratuity and pensions, and political leaders don't only get pension and gratuity, they get life pay after working for 8 years. Then I work for 35 years and I can't get 1/4 of mine in the same country. You can't have a system like that. What is it that the politician did that the rest of us have not done? That they have to have all of that, and we can't even have the little one that is given to us? So when you say all this, the Oronsaye panel, for me, I don't want to be pessimistic. I want to believe that since President Tinubu has decided to be confronting difficult things, frontally, I want to believe that we should appeal to him to keep the tempo going. All right? You see, in 1959, we had the Mbanefo panel. That's like the Oronsaye one. Right? That's 1959, before even we became an independent country. We've had Morgan, 1963, Adebo, 1971, Udoji, 1972, Dotun Phillips, 1985, Ayida, like that. We've had them. Ahmed Jordan, 1999. We've been having these panels. Nobody has ever implemented the reports of the panels. In 2008, MD Yusuf, Inspector General of Police, respected, was appointed to lead a team to reform the police. That team came up with 125 recommendations. Not one was implemented. So when you look at the Oronsaye panel, when did it start? 2012. Where are we today? What is waiting? The man submitted his report, then they set up a white paper committee, then they set up implementation committee, then they set up a review committee. Nothing is done. So invariably, some of the scandals that Oronsaye brought out, we are all pretending as if we never saw them. So there was one agency, I think Airspace Management Authority.
No.
Good. Oronsaye panel found that body had 253 assistant general managers. 253. We didn't need any panel to be set up to implement that. What does it? Does it make sense? When they set up boards in our own sector, Video, Film and Censors Board, they had 54 members on the board. It just tells you that from the very beginning, there was no intention to do anything that is serious. Because if there was an intention, we won't go to that extent. So now we are discussing around. I just hope it's not going to be just a discussion, that there will really be an implementation. And that implementation will take into consideration not necessarily the wordings of the Oronsaye report, but global realities and what's happening today. We must look at it against that backdrop. You can merge different bodies, especially when they have things in common. But if you merge 3 bodies and you send them the money you used to send to one, it means you intended to kill them.
Do you think it's political for them to say that nobody's going to lose his or her job?
Well, it may not be. We can have people there, but as we have had, a lot of people in Nigeria who are in government services don't have schedule. In my days, I used to get requests of, please, can you transfer this person from here to Abuja? And I said, is there a table for him there? Nobody is considering that. The request is coming from X. So you have to transfer the person to Abuja. You have not looked, is there a vacancy there? Do we need somebody there? Is that a place that is even congested? We can always have people that are roaming about. But my point is this. What is the purpose of the merger? Is this so that the objective for which the organizations were set up will be achieved? Right? If it is so, there's no problem. But if we are just merging for the sake of merging, then we are just wasting our energies. I believe that if we have organizations that are merged, one obvious advantage is that we will reduce the number of board members here and there. The overhead that will carry, the excess baggage that organizations carry, because these so-called board members just come there to ask for what they can get. They don't add anything to any organization. So government must start from starting point. Don't appoint anybody to an organization if he cannot add value to that organization, right? The person that you are sending to an organization must be able to add value before you ask whether he belongs to your party and therefore you want to help him. Government is not for helping parties. Government for all of us. It's not for one party.
Yeah. Let me speak about state governments in this regard. Do you think they're putting their weight enough in all of this that is going on in the country?
Some maybe, a very few maybe. I don't think generally, if you were to take government as a state government as an average body, the way a state governor operates is as follows. One, he seizes the money for local government. That already tells you that nothing is going to happen there. Why would you seize the money for local government if there's going to be a division of labor? If the constitution has established a local government, why can't we allow it to function? Right? Then government or governors will tell you they don't have power. They don't have instruments of coercion. They are not in charge of police. But go and have problem with a state government. You will know whether they have instruments of coercion. So when it's convenient, say we don't do, they are the ones. It's not state government that are funding police. They are the ones they're donating vehicles. They are the ones donating operational facilities to police. They are the ones holding meetings with police in their states. So when they tell you that they don't have power over police, they just say so to have more powers, not that they don't really have power when they want to use it. And then most of the things that are happening at the federal level have not gone down to the state level. In many states, they are still operating this cash situation. They are still doing Ghana must go backs. They are not following the latest. I won't even say that the federal has done too well in that area because we do policies and we don't implement them. Some time ago, we heard there was going to be cashless. And this cashless came, not many people understood it. It appears to have gone because nobody is talking about it. But if you go to the bank, you will go to the bank and find a very long queue. Those who have cash, those who want to transfer are on the same queue. Yet you are encouraging cashless. One would have expected that you will set up a cashless line that will make people realize that, oh, if you are cashless, you get what you are doing easily. And that encourages people to go there. But if all of us are going through the same process, then there's nothing about cashless. So really, policies must be well implemented. We must know the purpose of the policy, the gains that we anticipated before we begin to jump into it. Right. So I think the Oronsaye thing is good, but we have to be careful.
Ayo. That you talk about the governors the way you just did, but I'd like to follow up on that for a bit. And you've spoken about the fact that some things are happening at the federal level that should percolate to the states but have not. So if you don't mind using the analogy of a vehicle or an engine, right? The federal government is part of this engine. The state governments, 36 of them, with the FCT, are part of this engine. But the question a number of people might be asking is there a vision, is there a direction that each of the state governments should pitch into, which would give them a sense of purpose to work for Nigeria, not just for their own individual interests? How do you see that togetherness, Nigerianness, playing out, particularly from the angles of the state governments? Because it is in their communities, in their states, that the protests held and that the hunger is happening.
Thank you, Ayo. I think you are talking about what political scientists call collaborative federalism, where the different parts of a federation act together in the interest of society. That is a very good one if it happens, but it hardly happens in our climate. You know, there were two governors in this country during the last administration who decamped from one party to the other, and they said the purpose of decamping was to be able to help the president. Right? They wanted to be on the same page with the president. You don't have to be on the same party with the president so as to be on the same page with him in execution. If there's a government project and there's a role the state is to play there, I expect the state to play its role. You don't need to decamp from one party to another and create political tension in the place and say that the reason you went to the ruling party is that you want to be seen to be on the side of government. That means you are not doing collaborative federalism. Right? When the federal system, all the different tiers of government are supposed to be autonomous. And the Constitution has shared what each one should do. If everybody is doing its own, there won't be problem. If you go to the states, one of the things that you see that is almost common everywhere is this is a federal road because it is not hard, right? It's causing a lot of havoc. So they put a signboard that this is a federal road. And the question is, what are these federal roads doing in the middle of a state society? I mean, a state capital, the middle of it has a federal road. For what? That happened during the military when it was a unity government and people thought that the headquarters can dictate what will happen. But that's no longer so. So many federal roads are not working. States are trying to do those federal roads and they are quarreling with the federal government for doing that. But the states themselves are not doing their own roads. So your question is simple. We are not following the basic administrative procedure that is known as a systems approach, where everybody is playing his part, where an organization is looked at the way a human being is looked at, that has head, leg, hands, and all these parts have to work for the human being to operate well. I don't know when we can have that. I thought that was the purpose of the Governors Forum, which will bring a peer review, which will bring some level of collaboration among them, relating with the government and all of that. But if you tell me some level of collaboration that I see is when some state governors travel with the president outside the country. I don't know what that collaboration is. We don't tend to see the result.
Prof, interesting, but I'll stick with the state governments for a little bit. It is, given what you know, having lived for so many years and, being in broadcasting for so long as well, as many people believe, that Nigeria, almost every part of this country is very fertile. The states, the federal, everywhere is almost as fertile as the other, with one specialty or the other. Now, do you see a situation where the governors themselves can get ahead of the hunger crisis, the hardship? Because if we remove hunger out of poverty, at least there will be significant reduction in the pressure and the emotional crisis that people have to go through. Do you see a role for the governors in bringing down the cost of food in particular, which is the capital of inflation, the inflation rates in the country?
I think what you are saying is quite straightforward. It's not something that we can go into a lot of time analyzing. If a state governor can prioritize private power, whatever they call it, is schedule now that they are doing, that they can give power to some part of their states, they can jolly well prioritize agriculture. If you are telling them that they should change their priorities, if that's what you are trying to say, you have made your point. Hunger is the issue of the moment. So one will expect that people will move away right now from those other things they are doing to this aspect. But I met a young person who was talking with me in the airport the last time I flew, and we got into talking, and he brought up the same issue that you are saying. And I told him my experience, that the reason why some contracts are more important, the reason why some projects are more important than others, is that those important projects are those ones from which those who own them can get back a lot of money, right? So if building roads and bridges is what brings the greatest profit, and you're telling the governor to go and do food, it's not that the governor didn't know that he should do food. He's more particular about what is bringing him profit. So let's hope that what this program is saying is that we're appealing to our governors to change the priority and know that the issue of the moment is hunger. And then let's face that for now. I think that's a great thing to do.
Absolutely. Well, you began, in one of your responses to Malcolm the other time, you spoke very, very copiously about communication. And I am very excited about it because I believe that without that, we really can't make any progress. But then, if you compare government communication to Gen Z communication, how much gap does government have to fill?
Thank you, Ayo. I won't use your term. I will use mine. You know, sometimes when I engage people in government and I talk to them about communication, we usually have a lot of problems. They tell me, oh, see, we are doing all of this, we have done this, we have done that. And I ask them, do you know who you are talking to? In this country, 60% of Nigerians are illiterates. And then when we start to use channels to reach them, we're only reaching 40%. Who is reaching the remaining 60? It was this that the government had in mind when they set up the National Orientation Agency, to go about bringing the government news to the doorsteps of Nigerians, telling them in the language that they understand. But National Orientation Agency is still there. Why are they not doing this? Everybody will condemn them, but nobody has gone to find out what their problem is. In the last 10 years, National Orientation Agency has been getting money for salaries only. Is it the salary they will use to do mobilization and orientation of Nigerians? Will those salaries buy equipment for public enlightenment? All right?
Yeah, but even the private sector is beginning to look at those places as markets. And we're seeing increasingly many broadcast houses now doing, I don't want to use the word vernacular, but doing broadcasts in Pidgin English, in the language that many people now understand. So why is it still so difficult for government to get its own communication through if these other people are somehow still broadcasting?
Well, for me, really, it's even more than that. Okay? If you say that there are broadcasting stations in the rural areas who are doing local languages, you'd have to convince me that the people have money to buy battery to listen to these broadcasts. It's people who are hungry, who are looking for money to buy food. You want them to buy battery and be listening to argument on radio, which does not help them. So we need to do communication from all sectors. What you have just said is not bad. They can do it, but they must do all others so that those who understand this will hear what you are saying through this method. Those who will be more comfortable with another channel will get the essence of government through that second channel. There's nothing wrong in talking to people as if you are speaking Queen's English, right? If they hear you. But you must target communication. As DG of NTA, I had the opportunity of helping the NNPC in those days to transmit a jingle which they brought to me against pipeline vandalization. We put in network news every night and we're collecting millions from NNPC. It was okay for NTA. And then my friend and colleague who was then heading the NNPC asked me for my opinion. I told him, my brother, look, see, this money you brought, I can't reject it because we need money in NTA. But you are not talking to pipeline vendors by talking through NTA. Pipeline vendors are drinking ogogoro in the rural areas. They are not listening to NTA. They don't even have it, right? So if you want to talk to somebody and you are using a channel he doesn't hear, you are talking to yourself. And that's the issue with communication. It's the greatest thing in life. Not many people know. I tell governors when I meet them that the difference, that the world is divided into two. One part is the things that are done. The other part are those things that people know were done. The things that people do not know were not done as far as people were concerned. Therefore, you must communicate and use different methods that can make the people you are talking to understand you and hear you. And if we have a thing like that, today, I'm sure NAFDAC is doing a lot of work, but not many people hear of NAFDAC because they're no longer doing that aggressive communication that the late Dora Akunyili did. That is the difference. You must get to talk to people and also understand them.
Yes, indeed, Prof. We do appreciate your coming on this morning. Professor Tony Iredia is a broadcaster, sociologist, lawyer, and a lecturer. Thank you for coming on this.